billions of people on planet Earth are living in ignorance. Before your very eyes, politicians are advancing a global plan. Since the time of Napoleon, secret societies have been influencing politicians to take over and conquer Europe. Now, in the 21st century, their work of ages is coming to fruition. The New World Order is about the centralization of power. It's about silencing any public criticism of the system. It's about commercializing and selling everything as a product. It's about letting China torture students and still allowing them to host the Olympics. It's about closing down government-owned schools and hospitals, turning them into apartments, and then letting private companies make profits from teaching your children or selling you drugs. The secret societies and political organizations running the New World Order use various symbols and numbers. Once you learn their secret language, you too will have the all-seeing eye.
¿Existe en este mismo momento una hermandad secreta mundial cuyo propósito es controlar el planeta? O peor aún, ¿están ya en marcha sus terribles planes? ¿Hay armas devastadoras posicionadas por todo el mundo con el fin de causar resultados catastróficos? ¿Será posible detenerlos? Ángeles y demonios al descubierto.
De ver son fragmentos correspondientes a 3 documentales investigativos seculares. Estos han sido muy impresionantes para el autor puesto que describe la actualidad del mundo desde otra perspectiva totalmente diferente a la que estamos acostumbrados. A grandes rasgos, en estos documentales se da evidencia y se describe una conspiración mundial en donde unos pocos hombres o como lo llaman, la élite está tratando de tomar el control total económico, político y social de todo el planeta. Este grupo poderoso ya tiene mucha influencia, por no decir toda, en la economía y la política. Hablan y proponen un nuevo orden mundial donde solo haya un gobierno dirigido por ellos, por supuesto, y un gran control sobre todo ser humano y sobre todos los recursos. Pero lo más sorprendente es el origen de esta élite o sus bases ocultas, porque se habla de una sociedad secreta llamada los Illuminatis o los Inspirados. Esta sociedad de origen ocultista y satánico desde el comienzo tuvo el objetivo de lograr un total dominio del mundo y sus recursos para establecer un gobierno mundial que ellos dirigieran. Por tanto, se evidencia que esta élite y la sociedad secreta son una misma cosa. Pero usted seguramente se hará una pregunta como mismo el autor se la hizo. Si esto está sucediendo, ¿por qué hay tan poca información de ello? Porque apenas se habla de esto y de las cosas que la rodean. Aquí también se denuncia en estos documentales cómo esta hermandad secreta controla fuertemente los medios de comunicación, de tal manera que domina la gran mayoría de la información que sale al público y esconden toda aquella que crean puede ser perjudicial para sus propósitos. Entendiendo que los medios de comunicación son tan influyentes en la vida de la sociedad de hoy, entonces es realmente preocupante que estos individuos estén manipulando lo que la población ve, ya sea en noticias, películas, series, novelas, moda, etc., porque exprofeso ellos tratan de manipular a las personas según sus planes y los medios están hoy presentando una imagen mundial que no es real. Si usted es una persona incrédula puede que piense que todo esto es una paranoia religiosa. Pero lo mejor que el autor ve en esto, y para evitar esa idea si fuera el caso, es que toda esta información viene de documentales totalmente seculares, donde incluso en uno se hace crítica de la religión católica y se pone en duda la existencia de Cristo en la tierra. Por tanto, estas declaraciones están lejos de toda base cristiana y teológica.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order.
And this is the best chance to begin to establish the new world order.
I think even that does not describe why the world has changed so much and why the world has turned so much toward a new world order and a new kind of civilization.
It first started in 1967 when I found out that I had not gotten the big picture, even though I thought that I had it together. I just didn't have the complete pieces of the picture. This is a giant geo-psycho-political picture, and things are happening with the use of subliminal, indirect, and reverse psychological propaganda. It's made to be confusing by the evilarchy that controls not only the United States but Britain. This Illuminati, this group who called themselves the Enlightened Ones, had gained positions of power through control of the banking system.
So what is a central bank? A central bank is an institution that produces the currency of an entire nation. Based on historical precedent, two specific powers are inherent in central banking practice: the control of interest rates and the control of the money supply, or inflation. The central bank does not simply supply a government's economy with money, it loans it to them at interest. Then, through the use of increasing and decreasing the supply of money, the central bank regulates the value of the currency being issued. It is critical to understand that the entire structure of this system can only produce one thing in the long run: debt. It doesn't take a lot of ingenuity to figure this scam out. For every single dollar produced by the central bank is loaned at interest. That means every single dollar produced is actually the dollar plus a certain percent of debt based on that dollar. And since the central bank has the monopoly over the production of the currency for the entire country, and they loan each dollar out with immediate debt attached to it, where does the money to pay for the debt come from? It can only come from the central bank again, which means the central bank has to perpetually increase its money supply to temporarily cover the outstanding debt created, which in turn, since that new money is loaned out at interest as well, creates even more debt. The end result of this system without fail is slavery, for it is impossible for the government and thus the public to ever come out of the self-generating debt. In 1910, a secret meeting was held at a J.P. Morgan estate on Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia. It was there that the central banking bill called the Federal Reserve Act was written. This legislation was written by bankers, not lawmakers. This meeting was so secretive, so concealed from government and public knowledge that the 10 or so figures who attended disguised their names when en route to the island. After this bill was constructed, it was then handed over to their political frontman, Senator Nelson Aldrich, to push through Congress. And in 1913, with heavy political sponsorship by the bankers, Woodrow Wilson became president, having already agreed to sign the Federal Reserve Act in exchange for campaign support. And 2 days before Christmas, when most of Congress was at home with their families, the Federal Reserve Act was voted in, and Wilson in turn made it law. Now, the public was told that the Federal Reserve System was an economic stabilizer, and inflation and economic crises were a thing of the past. Well, as history has shown, nothing is further from the truth. For example, from 1914 to 1919, the Fed increased the money supply by nearly 100%, resulting in extensive loans to small banks and the public. Then, in 1920, the Fed called in mass percentages of the outstanding money supply, thus resulting in the supporting banks having to call in huge numbers of loans, and just like 1907, bank runs, bankruptcy, and collapse occurred. Over 5,400 competitive banks outside of the Federal Reserve System collapsed, further consolidating the monopoly of a small group of international bankers. Privy to this crime, Congressman Lindbergh stepped up and said in 1921, "Under the Federal Reserve Act, panics are scientifically created. The present panic is the first scientifically created one, worked out as we figure a mathematical equation." However, the panic of 1920 was just a warm-up. From 1921 to 1929, the Fed again increased the money supply, resulting once again in extensive loans to the public and banks. There was also a fairly new type of loan called a margin loan in the stock market. Very simply, the margin loan allowed an investor to put down only 10% of a stock's price, with the other 90% being loaned through the broker. In other words, a person could own $1,000 worth of stock with only $100 down. This method was very popular in the roaring 1920s, as everyone seemed to be making money in the market. However, there was a catch to this loan. It could be called in at any time and had to be paid within 24 hours. This is termed a margin call, and the typical result of a margin call is the selling of the stock purchased with the loan. So, a few months before October in 1929, J.D. Rockefeller, Bernard Baruch, and other insiders quietly exited the market, and on October 24, 1929, the New York financiers who furnished the margin loans started calling them in masse. This sparked an instantaneous, massive sell-off in the market, for everyone had to cover the margin loans. It then triggered mass bank runs for the same reason, in turn collapsing over 16,000 banks, enabling the conspiring international bankers to not only buy up rival banks at a discount, but to also buy up whole corporations at pennies on the dollar. It was the greatest robbery in American history. But that didn't stop there. Rather than expanding the money supply in order to recover from this economic collapse, the Fed actually contracted it, fueling one of the largest depressions in history. Once again outraged, Congressman Louis McFadden, a longtime opponent of the banking cartels, began bringing impeachment proceedings against the Federal Reserve Board, saying of the crash and depression, "It was a carefully contrived occurrence. International bankers sought to bring about a condition of despair so that they might emerge the rulers of us all." Not surprisingly, and after 2 previous assassination attempts, McFadden was poisoned at a banquet before he could push for the impeachment. Now, having reduced the society to squalor, the Federal Reserve bankers decided that the gold standard should be removed. In order to do this, they needed to acquire the remaining gold in the system. So, under the pretense of helping to end the Depression, came the 1933 gold seizure. Under the threat of imprisonment for 10 years, everyone in America was required to turn in all gold bullion to the Treasury, essentially robbing the public of what little wealth they had left. and at the end of 1933, the gold standard was abolished. If you look at a dollar bill from before 1933, it says it is redeemable in gold. You look at a dollar bill today, it says it is legal tender, which means it is backed by absolutely nothing. It is worthless paper. The only thing that gives our money value is how much of it is in circulation. Therefore, the power to regulate the money supply is also the power to regulate its value, which is also the power to bring entire economies and societies to its knees. It's important to clearly understand the Federal Reserve is a private corporation. It is about as Federal Express. It makes its own policies and is under virtually no regulation by the U.S. government. It is a private bank that loans all the currency at interest to the government, completely consistent with the fraudulent central banking model that the country sought to escape from when it declared independence in the American Revolutionary War. The next tool for profit and control is war. Since the inception of the Federal Reserve in 1913, a number of large and small wars have commenced. The three most pronounced were World War I, World War II, and Vietnam. World War I. In 1914, European wars broke out centered around England and Germany. The American public wanted nothing to do with the war. In turn, President Woodrow Wilson publicly declared neutrality. However, under the surface, the U.S. administration was looking for any excuse it could find to enter it. In a noted observation by Secretary of State William Jennings, the large banking interests were deeply interested in the World War because of the wide opportunities for large profits. It's important to understand that the most lucrative thing that can happen for the international bankers is war, for it forces the country to borrow even more money from the Federal Reserve Bank at interest. So, on May 7, 1915, on essentially the suggestion of Sir Edward Grey, a ship called the Lusitania was deliberately sent into German-controlled waters where German military vessels were known to be. And, as expected, German U-boats torpedoed the ship, exploding stored ammunition, killing 1,200 people. To further understand the deliberate nature of this setup, the German embassy actually put advertisements in the New York Times telling people that if they boarded the Lusitania, they did so at their own risk, as such a ship sailing from America to England through the war zone would be liable to destruction. In turn, and as anticipated, the sinking of the Lusitania caused a wave of anger among the American population, and America entered the war a short time after. The First World War caused 323,000 American deaths. J.D. Rockefeller made $200 million off of it. Not to mention the war cost about $30 billion for America, most of which was borrowed from the Federal Reserve Bank at interest, furthering the profits of the international bankers. World War II. On December 7, 1941, Japan attacked the American fleet at Pearl Harbor, triggering our entry into that war. President Franklin D. Roosevelt declared the attack was a day that will live in infamy. A day of infamy indeed, but not because of the alleged surprise attack on Pearl Harbor. After 60 years of surfacing information, it is clear that not only was the attack on Pearl Harbor known weeks in advance, it was outright wanted and provoked. Roosevelt, whose family had been New York bankers since the 18th century, whose uncle Frederick was on the original Federal Reserve Board, was very sympathetic to the interests of the international bankers, and the interest was to enter the war, as we've seen, nothing is more profitable for international bankers than war. Roosevelt had done almost everything in his power to anger the Japanese, showing a posture of aggression. He halted all of Japan's imports of American petroleum. He froze all the Japanese assets in the United States. He made public loans to nationalist China and supplied military aid to the British, both enemies of Japan in the war, which, by the way, is completely in violation of international war rules. And on December 4th, 3 days before the attack, Australian intelligence told Roosevelt about a Japanese task force moving towards Pearl Harbor. Roosevelt ignored it. So, as hoped and allowed, on December 7, 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, killing 2,400 soldiers. Before Pearl Harbor, 83% of the American public wanted nothing to do with the war. After Pearl Harbor, 1 million men volunteered for the war. Vietnam. The United States' official declaration of war on North Vietnam in 1964 came after an alleged incident involving 2 U.S. destroyers being attacked by North Vietnamese PT boats in the Gulf of Tonkin. This was known as the Gulf of Tonkin incident. This single situation was the catalytic pretext for massive troop deployment and full-fledged warfare. One problem, however: the attack on the U.S. destroyers by Vietnamese PT boats never happened. It was a completely staged event to have an excuse to enter the war. Former Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara stated years later that the Gulf of Tonkin incident was a mistake, while many other insiders and officers have come forward, relaying that it was a contrived farce, a complete lie. Once in the war, it was business as usual. The Vietnam War was never meant to be won, just sustained. This war for profit resulted in 58,000 American deaths and 3 million dead Vietnamese.
We cannot allow our sons and daughters to be sent to die in a bankster's war. For oil, for heroin, for cocaine, for gold, or for control. Sun Tzu, the great strategist of war, said that all confrontations are won before the battle begins. There has never been a battle that has been won defensively. But we must prepare by becoming self-sufficient. We must prepare to do that which has not been done before. Once identifying the enemy, they have to be routed out.
Más de 400 años después, a mediados del siglo XVIII, los masones, los asesinos, el priorato de Sion y los templarios existían como sociedades secretas relativamente aisladas, con un alcance limitado. Sin embargo, el 1 de mayo de 1776, en Baviera, la humanidad vivió el que bien podría ser su día más aciago. Adam Weishaupt, un profesor de leyes canónicas de formación jesuita y experto en lo oculto, formó una nueva sociedad secreta cuyo fin era unir a todas las sociedades secretas con un propósito impensable: tomar el control total del planeta y de sus recursos y lograr un dominio absoluto de sus pobladores. Eufemísticamente, Weishaupt lo llamó un nuevo orden mundial. Su diabólica hermandad fue fundada con base en una síntesis de los credos de las sociedades secretas preexistentes. Weishaupt combinó hábilmente el conocimiento y los rituales secretos de los masones, el misticismo islámico, el uso del hashish y el arte de matar de los asesinos, la gran influencia de los miembros del priorato de Sion y la riqueza, el poder, el conocimiento militar y el odio hacia la Iglesia Católica de los Templarios. A todo esto, Weishaupt le agregó su propio conocimiento del oculto. No fue ningún accidente que para fundar su sociedad eligiera el 1 de mayo, una fecha muy importante en el calendario satánico. El nombre del grupo era Los Illuminati. La traducción pública era Los Inspirados. Sin embargo, en privado, Weishaupt afirmaba que la palabra provenía del nombre de Lucifer y significaba los portadores de la luz. El sello oficial de la hermandad era una pirámide mística sin punta, sobre la cual hay un ojo que emana rayos de luz en todas direcciones. El ojo representaba la naturaleza omnisapiente de la hermandad iluminada que reinaría en todo el mundo. Weishaupt le comunicó a sus seguidores las 5 maniobras ultrasecretas por medio de las cuales alcanzarían su siniestra meta de dominar el mundo. 1. El soborno sexual y monetario sería usado para controlar a quienes ocuparan puestos elevados en las diferentes áreas de los gobiernos y en otros campos importantes. 2. Los Illuminati que fueran maestros en colegios y universidades reclutarían y cultivarían a los mejores estudiantes para la causa. 3. La hermandad colocaría a personajes influyentes y a estudiantes entrenados en todas las instituciones gubernamentales, religiosas y financieras para utilizarlos como agentes. 4. La sociedad secreta alcanzaría un dominio absoluto de los medios de comunicación con el fin de que toda la información pudiera ser manipulada para convencer a las masas de que un gobierno mundial es la única solución para los numerosos problemas del planeta. 5. La fase final de la operación movilizaría todos los recursos de la hermandad para iniciar golpes militares, con el fin de derrocar a todos los gobiernos que se opusieran y de someter a la humanidad a un gobierno mundial controlado por los Illuminati. Originalmente, el grupo estaba compuesto por masones de 32º grado y utilizaba varias sedes masónicas como fachadas y centros de reclutamiento. El masón de mayor rango en ser reclutado fue el barón Niggi, un noble del norte de Alemania, quien también era conocido como Adolf Francis. Niggi era uno de los hombres más importantes en la escena masónica europea. Los Illuminati guardaban celosamente sus secretos e identificaban a sus miembros y a sus sedes utilizando nombres clásicos. Por ejemplo, Weishaupt era Espartaco, Niggi era Philo, su cuartel general era Eleusis, Austria era Egipto, etc. Incluso las fechas eran escritas utilizando cierto tipo de criptografía. Bajo la dirección de Niggi, las filas de los Illuminati crecieron hasta llegar a 3.000 miembros. Pero su éxito también trajo una acérrima oposición. Los jesuitas combatieron a los Illuminati desde el principio, y todos los padres se convirtieron en enemigos de la hermandad. La Iglesia Católica emprendió una ofensiva contra la sociedad secreta. El clero presentó tal oposición que en 1784 el gobernador de Baviera emitió un edicto que declaraba a los Illuminati conspiradores fuera de la ley. Muchos Illuminati fueron arrestados y algunos, como Weishaupt, se vieron forzados a abandonar el país. Los francmasones sufrieron la misma suerte y fueron expulsados de Baviera. Para finales del siglo XVIII, los Illuminati parecían haberse extinguido en todas partes. Sin embargo, al igual que las sociedades secretas que les precedieron, simplemente se refugiaron en el anonimato.
The Royal Archmasons describe their highest-ranking brothers as Grand Solicitor Generals of the Supreme Grand Chapter. There is a secret word, the name of the true Masonic God, which none are allowed to say in public. This name is Yarbulon. The Masonic God is not the same God of the Bible, which the Masons call Adonai. Albert Pike is America's most celebrated Freemason. Pike was Grand Commander Sovereign Pontiff of Scottish Rite Freemasonry in the southern and western United States from 1859 to 1891. 14th of July 1889, Albert Pike issued these instructions to 23 Scottish Rite Supreme Councils throughout the world. We worship a God but it is the God that one adores without superstition. To you, Sovereign Grand Inspectors General, we say this, that you may repeat it to the brethren of the 30th, 31st, and 32nd degrees. The Masonic religion should be the Luciferian doctrine. Lucifer is God. The true and pure philosophical religion is the belief in Lucifer. So, Yarbulon is really an alternative name for the devil. The last syllable, on, is a code name for the ancient Egyptian god Osiris, who was the god of the dead. There can be no doubt that the Scottish Rite form of Freemasonry in America and Britain is controlled by high-ranking 33rd degree Masons who worship Satan or Lucifer as their god.
Los documentos confidenciales que obtuvimos contenían una revelación perturbadora. En ellos encontramos evidencia de que los Illuminati habían infiltrado a la Unión Soviética y a la KGB. Estos comunicados, entre dos altos funcionarios de la KGB, hacen referencia por su nombre al iluminado general, Adam Weishaupt. Y no solo eso, también hacen alusión a una conexión con dos exdirigentes de la Unión Soviética, Joseph Stalin y Nikita Khrushchev. La misión de colocar agentes dentro de los muros del Vaticano es una meta que Weishaupt, nuestro fundador, ideó 200 años atrás. Es algo que tanto Stalin como Khrushchev intentaron lograr a través de los años, pero sin éxito. Sin embargo, creo que esta vez finalmente podremos lograrlo. Asimismo, nuestros investigadores realizaron un alarmante descubrimiento en el laboratorio. La inspección del documento reveló que el punto que hay al final del último párrafo de la página es en realidad un sello. La pirámide sin punta rematada por un triángulo con un ojo. La insignia oficial de los Illuminati. Una marca utilizada por la sociedad secreta desde su creación en 1776. La KGB estaba decidida a infiltrarse en el Vaticano. ¿Pero por qué había despertado la Santa Sede tal interés en los rusos? La respuesta es simple. Los rusos no tenían ningún interés en el Vaticano, pero los Illuminati sí lo tenían. No solo los ayudaría a consumar su vendetta contra la Iglesia Católica, sino que sería crucial para su propósito más amplio de tomar el control del planeta. El Vaticano es posiblemente la fuerza ideológica más influyente en todo el mundo.
On the back of the dollar bill, you'll see the symbol on the left-hand side of the bill, which is Annuit Coeptus, which means our enterprise is now a success, or our enterprise is crowned with success. Annuit Coeptus. So you're saying, fine, so you have an enterprise and it's now crowned with success. What enterprise are you talking about? Novas Ordo Seclorum. Novas is novus, meaning new. Ordo is order, and Seclorum is where we get the word secular, meaning the world. So it's new order of the world, the New World Order. George Bush's New World Order is now a success.
Bill, you've heard an awful lot of dramatic speeches and seen dramatic moments in times of great gravity for the nation. How would you assess this evening?
This was a stirring address, in my view. Shorter than his father's speech when he announced the New World Order. Shorter than his father's speech when he announced the New World Order.
In 1934 is when the Federal Reserve actually finally took total control of the United States monetary system, and that's when they said it is now a success, because this is a symbol, this is an emblem of a secret society of Freemasons called the Illuminati, the German Bavarian Illuminati. They were a secret society founded in the south of Germany. They were called the Illuminati, the illuminated ones, the enlightened ones. Ut coeptis, novus odosiflorum, and that was in 1774 that the Bavarian Illuminati drew up their plans for what they were going to do in America and how they were going to do it. The triangle at the top with the light emanating from around it is Horus, the god of the ancient Egyptians. Of course, this is an Egyptian pyramid. You don't find pyramids in America, you find them in Egypt. And that pyramid is the symbol of the eye, was in the Egyptian religion Horus, which was the newborn sun. Every morning when the sun came up, his name was Horus. There was, that was the solar divinity in Egypt. Horus was God's son, the light of the world, who is risen. He is our risen Savior, our risen. And so Horus was referred to as God's son, and that's why the light is emanating from around, because it's the sun. The sun is a round eyeball of God. The ancient Egyptians believed the pupil of God was the sun, and he's watching you, and therefore the sun was very bright. And so today we even say someone who is extremely intelligent is brilliant. They're bright, and that's why God is, of course, the most brilliant of all. Therefore the sun is the most brilliant because it's God's eye. All right, anyway, there are 13 layers on the pyramid. And the 1776 at the bottom is 1776. A lot of people think it's because of the country being founded in 1776. It has nothing to do with that. As I said, this is on a document published back in 1774, 75, and then in 1776 the Roman numerals appeared on it in Europe. So what it amounted to is that the 1776 was when this secret society actually formed itself into a secret society and put itself into operation. They were the basis for what we call today in our country the Bavarian Illuminati was the basis for what we call today the Colombian faction. The Colombian faction of the Illuminati came here right after this government was formed, and that's where we get today this Columbia Space Shuttle, Columbia Movies, Columbia Television, Columbia Records, everything, Columbia University. As a matter of fact, Columbia TV, Columbia Broadcasting System, CBS. What is the symbol for CBS? It's the all-seeing eye. And that's why our government is in the District of Columbia, because these guys own our government. They print our money, and they own not only the government, but they own you. You are their property. So, in other words, these guys print the money, they run the country, and they own you, and they own everything around it. And so they make the laws, and that's why they can decide who can kill who, and who can get away with who, and who can get away with whatever, because they make the laws and they decide, all right? As I said to you before, there are 13 layers in this pyramid. There are 13 letters in Anno Coeptis, but 13 is a very important number to this secret society. There are 13 stripes, there are 13 stars here, which make up the Star of David. The 13 berries, there are 13 leaves, 13 arrows. There are 32 feathers here and 33 feathers there. Everything is done in a sequence of 13. 13, of course, is based on, this is what we call Masonic symbolism. Freemasons designed this dollar bill. Everything is done in a sequence of 13, and again, I draw your attention to the fact that you have 13 stars here, which collectively make up the Star of David. There's a reason why. On the $1 bill at the top, you'll see this little image right here. But if you blow it up from an actual photograph, you'll see it is it's a little owl. It's a symbol of the Bohemian Society. The Bohemian Society meets in California on the last 2 weeks of July of every year. I have pictures showing all of the presidents, all of the living presidents, excluding the new one, but all of the living presidents at Bohemian Grove in Northern California, and they're all wearing red and black Ku Klux Klan dress type of regalia, like the Ku Klux Klanners, with the pointed headdress and everything. And, I mean, that's quite a sight to see presidents dressed like Ku Klux Klan members, right? And they're standing in front of a big open pit of fire, and behind them is about a 20 to 25 foot owl behind them. And the article in Elm magazine and Time magazine, I've got 2 or 3 different magazines showing basically the same pictures. It says that the presidents meet with all of the heads of industry throughout the world, all of the heads of state throughout the world, and all of the most important wheeler dealers in this country, and they all meet up in Northern California, and they have rituals where they go before the owl after midnight. And what a picture you got, with all the presidents dressed up like Ku Klux Klanners with black and red robes on before an owl, and these are your presidents of this country. And the reason why they chose the owl is because the owl is a symbol used in Europe by secret societies, because the owl is wise, because it sees things in the dark. And the implication is, of course, that's why they are where they are, because they're very brilliant and they know things that you don't know.
Studying shadows like an indoor cat until dusk, when the sky walks me home.
How far has the ancient Illuminati secret society network penetrated world politics? If you read the many books published about conspiracies, then you will learn that many leading authors have alleged that British Prime Minister Tony Blair is a high-ranking Freemason. Mr. Blair is a Queen's Counsel barrister, a profession which has its roots in the Temple Bar, built in London by the Knights Templar secret society in the 12th century. According to many authors, Tony Blair follows the tradition of Masonic membership amongst large numbers of barristers and judges. Mr. Blair is allegedly a member of the 1591 Studholme Masonic Lodge, which meets, amongst other places, at the Café de Paris in London. Knight says that the Palace of Westminster, home to the British Parliament, is used as a meeting place for at least 2 Masonic lodges. One of these lodges is called the New Welcome Masonic Lodge, which regularly hosts blood-curdling rituals and ceremonies inside the Palace of Westminster. Members of Parliament from all political parties gather together, wearing white gloves, sashes, lambskin aprons, and wielding ceremonial daggers, swearing bloodthirsty oaths of allegiance to each other. Just where this leaves British democracy is anyone's guess, but the fact that these secret ceremonies take place in a building paid for by the British taxpayer leaves one wondering if Freemasons do not see themselves as superior to the average British citizen. Many researchers claim British Prime Minister Tony Blair is a high-ranking 33rd degree Freemason. This is the highest rank of Mason, and this elite cabal of British Freemasonry has its own headquarters at number 10 Duke Street, which some claim is connected to number 10 Downing Street via a secret underground tunnel. Inside the Duke Street headquarters of the Supreme Council of the 33rd degree, there is a red room, a black room, and a chamber of death, which Masons use for macabre rituals based on ancient Jewish mysticism and Enochian magic. Once initiated into the 33rd degree, Masons are told they are superior beings, and the human population are referred to as being profane goyim, which means cattle. If Tony Blair is indeed a 33rd degree Freemason, then he is following in the footsteps of previous Prime Ministers, who have all been members of either Freemasonry, the Knights Templar, or the Round Table, which was started by Sir Cecil Rhodes following his economic conquest of Zimbabwe during the 19th century. Winston Churchill was also a 33rd degree Freemason, initiated into the Studholme Lodge at the headquarters of the 33rd degree in May 1901. Tony Blair meeting with George Bush Jr. we are actually seeing two knights of secret orders. Blair is rumoured to be a sovereign knight of Malta, whilst Bush is confirmed as being a knight of Eulogia, his title bestowed upon him whilst laying in a coffin at the Skull and Bones Secret Society headquarters at Yale University. Blair and Bush claim to have democracy and freedom as their #1 priorities, but both have sworn blood-curdling oaths of allegiance to ancient Babylonian, Egyptian, and Jewish demon gods. Both have sworn on pain of death not to reveal the secrets of their Masonic orders. Both have been initiated into the age-old Illuminati global network, which is obsessed with death and murder. I mean, are we being ruled by politicians who consult with Baphomets and demons?
Yes, we are. The way the world is structured is like a compartmentalized pyramid, and it's pyramids within pyramids, like Russian dolls, one doll inside a bigger doll inside a bigger doll. So you'll have a compartmentalized pyramid that is the British government, for instance, where the people at the bottom don't know what the top is really going towards, what the agenda really is. Just as in in a bank, you've got a bank, and the people at the bottom of the bank who take the checks over the counter, they don't know what's going on above them, and they don't know what's going on above them. And eventually, in all these pyramids, you have a tiny little number of people at the top that are actually the only people that know how the whole game fits together. Everyone else is just playing their part in ignorance. And so what the Illuminati do is they make sure that only their people, or those that are not a problem to them, will reach those levels of power in which decisions have to be made to push this agenda forward. When people say sometimes, well, you see these people everywhere, you see these one and these one other. No, hold on a second. No, they're at these high positions of power. Therefore, because of this process of filtering them out, if you're not one of us, mate, you ain't going to get sponsored by the right people to get these positions of power. And if you slip through the net, there's going to be a scandal, or there's going to be something we're going to bring up that's going to bring you down because you're not one of our guys. And so therefore, the ratio of people who are into these dark satanic rituals, etc., to positions of real power in the world are very, very high compared with the general population, where it's nothing like as high, of course. And so the question answers itself, in my experience, when people say, do you think the Prime Minister of Britain's involved? And my reply is he the Prime Minister of Britain? Yeah, well, he's involved, particularly Britain, because the reason, you see, that you cannot put a cigarette paper between the British Prime Minister ever and the President of the United States, whether Democrat or Republican, is because both are answering to exactly the same masters. And Blair and Bush, who are gophers, I mean, the real power you don't see. They're just, they're on public display, they're still at gopher level. They are far more terrified of those in the shadows dictating to them than they are of public reaction to them. Because the most that public reaction can do is kick them out. It's not the most that the people in the shadows can do. I was talking years indeed before Blair came to power, that Blair was a chosen one and that he would be brought through. And one of his tasks would be to take Britain into the euro, among many other things. And this is why Bush and Blair speak from the same song sheet, because the same people are handing out the song sheets. So yes, absolutely is involved. And so are the British royal family in horrendous rituals that go on at places like Balmoral. And if what really goes on comes out, and it will, people like Bush and Blair and the British royal family will have to reincarnate many times to complete the sentence.
They do not want you to think too much. That is why our country and our world has become so proliferated with entertainments, mass media, television shows, amusement parks, drugs, alcohol, and every kind of entertainment to keep the human mind entertained so that you don't get in the way of important people by doing too much thinking. You had better wake up and understand that there are people who are guiding your life and you don't even know it.
We're in a lot of trouble because you people and 62 million other Americans are listening to me right now, because less than 3% of you people read books, because less than 15% of you read newspapers, because the only truth you know is what you get over this tube. Right now, there is an entire generation that never knew anything that didn't come out of this tube. This tube is the gospel, the ultimate revelation. This tube can make or break presidents, popes, prime ministers. This tube is the most awesome goddamn force in the whole godless world. And woe is us if it ever falls into the hands of the wrong people. And when the largest company in the world controls the most awesome goddamn propaganda force in the whole godless world, who knows what shit will be peddled for truth on this network. So you listen to me. Listen to me. Television is not the truth. Television is a goddamn amusement park. Television is a circus, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats, storytellers, dancers, singers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players. We're in the boredom-killing business. But you people sit there day after day, night after night, all ages, colors, creeds. We're all you know. You're beginning to believe the illusions we're spinning here. You're beginning to think that the tube is reality and that your own lives are unreal. You do whatever the tube tells you. You dress like the tube. You eat like the tube. You raise your children like the tube. You even think like the tube. This is mass madness, you maniacs. In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion.
The last thing the men behind the curtain want is a conscious, informed public capable of critical thinking, which is why a continually fraudulent zeitgeist is output via religion, the mass media, and the educational system. They seek to keep you in a distracted, naive bubble, and they are doing a damn good job of it. In 2005, an arrangement between Canada, Mexico, and the United States was made. This arrangement, unannounced to the public, unregulated by Congress, merges the United States, Mexico, and Canada into one entity, erasing all borders. It's called the North American Union, and you might want to ask yourself why you've never heard of this. In fact, there is only one mainstream reporter who has actually heard of and has had the courage to cover this issue.
The Bush administration's open borders policy and its decision to ignore the enforcement of this country's immigration laws is part of a broader agenda. President Bush signed a formal agreement that will end the United States as we know it, and he took the step without approval from either the U.S. Congress or the people of the United States.
It's a deal that few have even heard of.
It's being done again by very few people at the very top on behalf of the investment class, but the working class of people. Political officials across our country, from communities, from cities and so forth, they don't know anything about this.
This isn't some trade agreement. It is a total removal of sovereignty from these countries, which will also result in a completely new currency called the Amero.
Fall. Apart from that, I think one thing people who are dollar-based need to focus on is the Amero. That's the one thing that nobody's talking about that I think is going to have a big impact on everybody's life in Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. The Amero is the proposed new currency for the North American community, which is being developed right now between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico to make a borderless community, much like the EU, and the dollar, Canadian dollar, U.S. dollar, and the Mexican peso replaced by the Amero.
By default of this agreement, the American Constitution will eventually be obsolete. You would think that a situation like this would be on the cover of every major newspaper. That is until you realize that the people who are behind this movement are the same people behind the mainstream media, and you are not told what you're not supposed to know. The North American Union is the same concept as the European Union, the African Union, and the soon-to-be Asian Union, and the same people are behind all of them. And, when the time is right, the North American Union, the European Union, the African Union, and the Asian Union will be merged together, forming the final stages of a plan these men have been working on for over 60 years. A one-world government. One bank, one army, one center of power. And if we have learned anything from history, it is that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Television is a massive mass hypnotist to the global mind. And what happens is it is implanting a belief in reality by the minute, and then once we take on that belief implanted, when information enters the eyes, we edit it on the basis of that belief. And so what the global population is subjected to, suffering from, is actually literally mass hypnosis. And when we talk about people who kind of start to see things and see the manipulation they couldn't see before, what do we say about them? What do they say about themselves? They say, I woke up. Exactly what they've done. When people start to go, hey, I can see it now, it's like someone has gone along, like the hypnotist, and clicked their fingers, and it's like, oh, I can see it now. Mass hypnosis. And that is the greatest hypnotist on the planet, and that's the basis of why it was created.
A 49-year-old unidentified man went berserk last night.
Where did she get her view of the world?
Shotgun. 14 people are dead, including 3
Who will be her role models? What values will she have? Whose child is she? Yours or the network's? Take back your children. Turn off the TV.
And when you start to research the subliminals in advertising and television, what staggers you is not what they do and what's there, but the scale of it. I mean, it's like our consciousness is being hit by an explosion of this stuff. Because you see, this is another interesting point. Experiments have shown that about 1.5 seconds before the conscious mind decides to take action, move its arms or whatever, speak, 1.5 seconds before it consciously decides to do that, the electrical signals have begun in the brain to do it. For me, the conscious level is the experiencer and observer of reality, but the subconscious is the creator of it, the generator of it. And this is why the Illuminati want the subconscious mind through subliminals. What does subliminal mean? It means below threshold. It's below the threshold the conscious mind picks up, but the subconscious mind picks everything up like a sponge. And therefore they are planting these thoughts into the subconscious, which then filter down into the conscious, and we think we're having our own thoughts, when actually they're implanted thoughts done at a subliminal level.
Rats were caught in the sewers a week ago. Now they stop. When the plastic door is raised up, the rats will shoot out like bullets. It was a common punishment in Imperial China. They're going to do it. Going to Julia! Not me! Julia!
And of course this is being used, this subliminal manipulation, in politics. I mean, of course we had that incident during the Bush-Gore farce of an election, when an anti-Gore political broadcast for Bush, they put a subliminal in of rats while they were talking, but they left it up too long, and you only had to play the tape back slowly, a little slowly, and up come rats as some anti.
Ahora veamos. Es increíble cómo los medios están llenos de mensajes subliminares y directos de diversos temas, pero la gran mayoría están relacionados al sexo y no para incitar el orden y buenas costumbres, sino más bien el desenfreno y el desorden, y todo enmascarado con el modernismo de este tiempo. Es increíble que aún niños y jóvenes de muy corta edad estén siendo incitados tanto al sexo desordenado a través de películas, series, revistas, publicidad, aún a través de la música. Pero aquí cabe hacerse una pregunta. ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué incitar este desenfreno? ¿Por qué contribuir a que la sociedad caiga más bajo y sufra estas consecuencias? Porque para nadie es secreto que a partir de la gran revolución sexual de los años 70 y con la ayuda de los medios en la propagación de este desenfreno, la tasa de divorcios, la tasa de enfermos por enfermedades de transmisión sexual, los abortos y las enfermedades han aumentado tremendamente. Solo por poner un ejemplo. En los 60 solo había 5 enfermedades por transmisión sexual conocidas, hoy hay más de 30, de las cuales gran parte es incurable. Sabiendo que esta sociedad secreta controla en gran manera los medios, es lógico que son los responsables del mensaje que ellos brindan, ¿no le parece? Por tanto son los promotores de este desenfreno sexual y lo imponen por todas partes, ya sea de manera subliminal como directa. ¿Pero qué persiguen con esto? Teniendo todos estos datos anteriores, una respuesta aflora por sí misma. Si la guerra es todo un negocio, ¿no lo será también las enfermedades, los abortos, el aumento en la demanda de pornografía y demás consecuencias que trae este constante bombardeo de los medios sobre la sociedad mundial? Después de todo, el aumento de todas estas cosas genera más demanda de dinero, tanto por parte de la población como por parte de instituciones para brindar servicios, por lo cual se genera mucho interés en el sistema de banco central, siendo esto de ganancia para esta élite internacional. Además de beneficiar mucho a empresas de servicio tales como los servicios de salud, de abortos, que es un nuevo negocio, de pornografía, quizás de psicología, por el costo emocional que traen estas cosas en una persona. Parece que lo único que interesa es vender y que compren, para así mantener la oferta-demanda en altos niveles sin importar los medios para lograrlo. También muchas veces es común ver en programas infantiles rastros de satanismos y cosas ocultas, haciéndolos partícipes, a los niños, de cosas que bajan su rendimiento escolar y que han traído denuncias mundialmente por afectarlos drásticamente en su comportamiento, llevándolos a la rebeldía y la violencia. Busque noticias sobre estas cosas y verá. Esto también afecta a las familias y las destruye. La rebeldía de los hijos, los adulterios, y el constante bombardeo de los medios en cuanto al modelo de comportamiento que presentan, están llevando los matrimonios y las familias al desastre. Entendiendo que la familia es la columna fundamental de la sociedad, podemos decir entonces que, estas cosas están destruyendo la sociedad, y una sociedad débil y destruida es más fácil de controlar que una firme y sana, y esto es algo que esta hermandad secreta tiene en planes, el control mundial.
This is Aaron Russo, a filmmaker and former politician. To his left is Nicholas Rockefeller of the infamous Rockefeller banking and business dynasty. After maintaining a close friendship with Nicholas Rockefeller, Aaron eventually ended the relationship, appalled by what he had learned about the Rockefellers and their ambitions.
I got a call one day from an attorney woman I knew, and she said, would you like to meet one of the Rockefellers? I said, sure, I'd love to. And we became friends, and he began to divulge a lot of things to me. So he said to me one night, he said that there's going to be an event there, and out of that event, you're going to see, we're going to go into Afghanistan, so we can run pipelines from the Caspian Sea. We're going to go into Iraq to take the oil and establish a base in the Middle East, and we're going to go into Venezuela and try and get rid of Chavez. And the first two they've accomplished. Chavez they didn't accomplish. And he said you're going to see guys going into caves looking for looking for people that they're never going to find. You know, he was laughing about the fact that you have this war on terror. There's no real enemy. He's talking about how by having this war on terror, you can never win it because it's an eternal war. And so you can always keep taking people's liberties away. And I said, how are you going to convince people that this war is real? He said, but the media can convince everybody it's real. I mean, you know, it's just that you keep talking about things. You keep saying it over and over and over again, and eventually people believe it. You know, you created the Federal Reserve in 1913 through lies. You create 9/11, which is another lie. Through 9/11, then you're fighting a war on terror, and now all of a sudden you go into Iraq, which was another lie, and now they're going to do Iran. You know, and it's all one thing leading to another, leading to another, leading to another. Now, I would say to them, what are you doing this for? What's the point of this thing? You have all the money in the world you ever want. You have all the power. I said, you know, you're hurting people. It's not a good thing. And he would say, what do you care about the people for? Take care of yourself and you take care of your family. And then I said to him, what are the ultimate goals here? He said, the ultimate goal is to get everybody in this world chipped with the RFID chip and have all money be on those chips and everything on those chips. And if anybody wants to protest what we do or violate what we want, we just turn off their chip.
That's right, microchipped. In 2005, Congress, under the pretense of immigration control and the so-called war on terrorism, passed the Real ID Act, under which it is projected by May 2008, you will be required to carry around a federal identification card, which includes on it a scannable barcode with your personal information. However, this barcode is only an intermediary step before the card is equipped with a Verichip RFID tracking module, which will use radio frequencies to track your every move on the planet. If this sounds foreign to you, please note that the RFID tracking chip is already in all new American passports. And the final step is the implanted chip, which many people have already been manipulated into accepting under different pretenses.
We have a Florida family who are really pioneers in a brave new world. They have volunteered to be the first ever to have microchip identification devices implanted into their bodies.
After 9/11, I was really concerned with the security of my family.
I wouldn't mind having something planted permanently in my arm that would identify me.
In the end, everybody will be locked into a monitored control grid where every single action you perform is documented. And if you get out of line, they can just turn off your chip, for at that point in time, every single aspect of society will revolve around interactions with the chips. This is the picture that is painted for the future if you open your eyes to see it. A centralized one-world economy where everyone's moves and everyone's transactions are tracked and monitored, all rights removed. The most incredible aspect of all. These totalitarian elements will not be forced upon the people. The people will demand them.
El microchip Mondex desarrollado por Motorola, su nombre significa dinero en la mano derecha, Mon, dinero o monetario, y Dex que viene de Dexter, mano derecha. Este es un dato importante, se gastaron más de 1.5 millones de dólares en estudios, solo para saber cuál era el mejor lugar para colocar este biochip en el cuerpo humano. Y solo encontraron dos lugares satisfactorios y eficientes, la cabeza, debajo del cuero cabelludo, y la parte detrás de la mano, específicamente la mano derecha. De ahí su nombre. Más de 250 corporaciones en 20 países están involucradas distribuyendo Mondex al mundo y muchas naciones ya fueron privilegiadas para usar el sistema. Entre ellas, Reino Unido, Canadá, USA, Australia, Nueva Zelanda, Israel, Hong Kong, China, Indonesia, Macao, Malasia, Filipinas, Singapur, Tailandia, India, Taiwán, Sri Lanka, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Panamá, Honduras, El Salvador y Brasil. Sin embargo, esto es algo también de lo que hay poca información en los medios. Es importante todo esto para lo que veremos en breve.
I was an FBI agent for 27.5 years. At the time of my retirement, I was the senior special agent in charge of the FBI Los Angeles Division. I have been qualified in the courts as an expert on cults and satanic ritual abuse. I have information from various sources that judges, law enforcement, prosecutors, attorneys, doctors, and many prominent individuals, including actors, actresses, professional football and baseball players, are involved in these type activities. If you go back 225 or 30 years ago, you have what we call the Illuminati that was established in 1776. And the goals of the Illuminati, this is all very well documented, are to take over the world. One of the best ways of taking over the world is to control people's minds and to take over a country through the control of the minds. So what's happening in America, and based on my research and my interviews with numerous individuals, is that the powers that be, the higher-ups, the people in the Illuminati, are using the satanic cults as a means and as a tool to condition individuals and to make them victims of the mind control, MK Ultra mind control program. There's probably close to 4 million practicing Satanists in the United States alone, based on my intelligence information.
We're talking about occultic forces. We're talking about the 5-pointed pentagram, which was used by satanic worshippers for thousands of years. If you take the 5 points off of a 5-pointed star, or a pentagram, you have left in the middle a pentagon. The pentagon is directed toward the North Star, because according to the ancient Babylonians, that's where you gathered power from the gods of the North.
Satanists do not take part in certain rituals with certain sounds in certain places and certain colors and certain, verbal statements. They don't do it because, oh, that'd be nice, let's say that, and then shall we have a bit of red, or what do you think? No. It's done because everything in this reality is vibration. Consciousness in this reality is vibration. Everything is a vibrational field. This is how astrology works. When we're born, where the planets are. They're sending out vibrational projections that are affecting the vibrational field that we are born into, and that's why we are affected differently at different times of the year. Therefore, they understand this, and they're manipulating these vibrational fields all the time to manipulate us. And so these rituals are just a pageant. It's like the Freemasonic rituals. You know, you talk to Freemasons, the vast majority of Freemasons not trying to manipulate anyone, not on a mass scale anyway. And they'll say, so what about these rituals, mate? Oh, I don't know. They do silly things. You always try to leg up and bare your bloody breast. I don't know. It's some ancient bloody tradition. I don't know what it's all about. Anyway, you know, they do a nice dinner, you know, so you only have to do it once. They don't realize that these initiation rituals are actually set up to affect the participants in a certain way that allows these other dimensional entities, which folklore have talked about for thousands of years all over the bloody planet, this theme of possession by demons. These are entities that exist just outside the frequency range of the five senses. Because, you know, again, because of the suppression of basic knowledge of who we are and the nature of life, we become child's play to manipulate. For instance, people look through their eyes and they think they're seeing everything in the space they're looking at. No, they're seeing a fraction of it. They're seeing a tiny frequency range that the five senses can access. Just like if you tune to radio 1, you get radio 1. You don't get radio 2, you get radio 1. And this is why, you know, if there was a cat in this room now, it might be reacting to what is to us here empty space. But it's not empty space to the cat because it has a greater visual frequency range. Now, just outside the frequency range of the five senses are entities that are manipulating this five sense reality through these particular bloodlines. And one of the key places where this possession takes place is during these satanic rituals and gatherings, when the vibrational environment is created by the ritual that allows this takeover of the mental and emotional processes of these people to take place. And this is why you'll meet so many people who've known famous politicians and staff when they started in politics or before they came into politics. And they'll say, you know, mate, that guy ain't the bloke that I knew. Well, mentally and emotionally, that's literally true in a lot of cases because of this possession that takes place. And people think it's kind of far-fetched and almost maddening. That may happen in Babylon, but not now. Well, please. That very thought is the greatest defense mechanism this grotesque conspiracy has to protect it.
Benedetta Maligno, Ave Maria, piena di grazia, il Signore è con te. Tu sei benedetta fra le donne, benedetta Santa Maria, ma libera, ma Maria, no, maligno, è Cristo più forte. Cacciale via, no, di la verità. Di la verità a questa signora. Esiste o non esisti tu? Il demonio esiste o non esiste?
Esiste il demonio!
Come fai a dimostrarlo? Come fai a dimostrare che esiste?
Le guerre, tutto!
Ma questo...
Io esisto! E chi non ci crede bene?
Ma questo...
Las gentes caminan de un lugar a otro sin hallar salida a sus problemas. La tierra todos los días se conmueve por causa del terrorismo y son destruidas las torres de la soberbia humana. Las gentes confundidas sienten temor en sus corazones y muchos toman decisiones fatales. La tierra se convulsiona, los corazones se resecan y el planeta entero se ve abocado a situaciones del clima como el calentamiento global que hace que los polos se derritan y el aumento de las aguas hace que éstas asciendan hacia las costas. Grandes ciudades serán destruidas. La contaminación ha influido grandemente para que el cambio del clima sea más catastrófico, inundando grandes áreas. Ciudades son destruidas, las gentes abandonan sus lugares de vivienda y muchos desesperados corren, deambulan de un lugar al otro sin encontrar un lugar de reposo. Las personas sufren de grandes crisis y enfermedades. La tierra está a la espera de una situación mayor y más grave. El mundo se convulsionará, el mundo estallará en grandes crisis.
Jesus Christ is coming back for his church. The Bible says in Matthew chapter 24 verse 42, "Watch therefore, for you do not know the hour your Lord is coming." I want you to know, church, that Jesus Christ could come this month, or he might come next week, or he could even come...
Ya para ir terminando. Como usted ha podido ver aquí, el autor le presenta investigaciones y hechos seculares, cosas que han testificado y están testificando muchos a nivel mundial, pero si tomar en cuenta la profecía bíblica. El autor ha quedado impresionado con todo esto, pues le ha sido de gran ayuda para el esclarecimiento de muchos temas bíblicos sobre el porvenir y sobre todo lo bien que encaja todo este panorama mundial con el panorama profetizado y descrito en las escrituras, como usted debe haber apreciado en las comparaciones expuestas. Porque ahora estos investigadores están descubriendo lo que ya hace 2000 años y más está anunciado por Dios. Si usted es una persona incrédula, ahora tiene dos caminos. Uno, prestar atención a Jesucristo y la palabra bíblica siendo persuadido de su veracidad, o dos, ignorar todo esto y tenerlo en poco. El autor le recomienda el primer camino, prestarle atención a Jesucristo y su palabra, porque será para su bien. Si escoge el segundo camino, entonces recibirá las consecuencias de ignorar al Creador de todo lo que existe y será su responsabilidad. En caso de ser usted ya un cristiano convertido y hermano, reciba esto para edificación y para confirmación de que fiel es el Señor y su palabra. Ahora veamos. Tomando en cuenta las profecías bíblicas, veamos qué anuncia el Señor sobre todo esto y cómo terminará. Como ya vio anteriormente, se levantará este gobernante mundial sobre todo el mundo y todo esto se cumplirá, por tanto es absurdo tratar de evitarlo, porque a Dios le ha placido dar a Lucifer la victoria por un tiempo. Este gobernante reinará a nivel mundial por 3 años y medio y hará pacto de paz con Israel. Pasado este tiempo romperá el pacto de paz con el pueblo de Israel y ejercerá una gran dictadura mientras prepara el ejército mundial para destruir a los israelitas. Se reunirán en el lugar llamado Armagedón y ahí Jesucristo mismo vendrá con los ejércitos del cielo para enfrentar la batalla, entonces este sistema será destruido por completo. Todo aquel que crea en Jesucristo y espere en sus promesas no tendrá que vivir estas cosas que vienen, pues el Señor prometió llevarlos de la tierra justo antes de que todo esto comience. He ahí la importancia de que se decida hoy por Cristo para que escape a estas cosas que se acercan. El reino de Dios es real y allí estarán los que lo siguen. Jesucristo murió por usted, no lo ignore hoy porque mañana puede que sea tarde. Si se decide por él en su corazón, pídale que sea su Salvador y que le perdone sus ofensas, porque todos ofendemos a Dios con el pecado, y busque una iglesia donde se predique a Jesucristo y se ponga por obra sus palabras.